Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In Chapter 21, a group of women chased after him with slippers and started whipping him off her. Purple Peony Machine Translation. He broke down and was rushed onto the stage by the onlookers. They took off their shoes and started whipping him. The bodyguard quickly rushed forward to protect him and said, "Director Huang, let's retreat first. Pervert, you even adopted a child. See if I won't beat you to death." A group of women chased after him with slippers and started whipping him. The bodyguard pushed them away. Director Huang's charity event was ruined. He said to the bodyguards, "Who dared to steal my phone? Investigate, investigate. Find this person and kill him immediately. No. Tear him into pieces. Director Huang, this is bad. Your Yin.Yang contract has been exposed on the internet, and you are evading taxes." At this moment, the assistant felt that the situation was not good. The stock market naturally collapsed in a second. It fell 10 points in a row, and many people were selling to get rid of it. In the dark, He Lanjin watched this scene. She sneered and turned to leave, but she did not notice that not far from the roadside, a luxurious luxury car was parked there. The window of the car slowly rolled down, and a peerlessly handsome face appeared. "Master, the matter has been settled. From today onwards, the capital of the Tianchong Group will not be able to turn around. The shareholders will withdraw their capital and face the collapse of their business. They will soon go bankrupt," Han Beiqing said in a low voice. Looking at the disheveled Director Huang, he was like a fat ball being pushed and pushed by his bodyguards. This time, because of Miss He's intervention, more people paid attention to this matter. She played a great role in this matter. It can be considered as eliminating the harm for the people, Han Beiqing said. He did not expect that He Lanjin would go to find the sound and steal Director Huang's phone. Now, he was more and more impressed with her. "Go back." Xiao Hanya lazily leaned against the back seat. He raised his handsome face and looked at the tall figure not far away. After a long time, he rolled up the car window and the luxury car slowly left. It disappeared into the crowd as if it had never appeared before. He Lanjin was in a good mood and left the scene. She was ready to invite Qin Nan to have a cup of coffee and give that kid a beating. However, she saw He Ruoshue's figure. Although it was winter now, the weather was not bad today. He Ruoshue was wearing a short skirt with a V-neck sweater. She wore a rice-colored coat and a pair of long boots. It made her legs look long, stylish, and sexy. He Lanjin, with that stupid look of hers. Even if she found out that I slept with her man, she would at most cry, make a fuss, and hang herself. Do you still expect Lu Zifan to fall in love with her since she's already in my bed? Do you want to get down unless he's dead, or else? He won't be able to get rid of me for the rest of his life." He Ruoshue raised her nails that were painted bright red, blew on them proudly, and talked on the phone. The current her was like a completely different person in front of He Lanjin. "Let's not chat anymore. He asked me to get a room," He Ruoshue said tenderly. She hung up the phone and took the initiative to call Lu Zifan. She said tenderly and ambiguously, brother.in.law, brother.in.law. "I'm so hungry. You have to feed me well later." He Lanjin stood there and looked at this scene. She raised her eyebrows. She didn't expect that after last night's incident, the two of them couldn't stand the loneliness and wanted to ask out Pao again. He Ruoshue was brainless, but Lu Zifan was definitely not. It seemed that he had a new plan. "Let's brainwash her in bed," He Lanjin thought to herself. Looking at the phone in her hand, she thought that since CEO Huang was exposed, he would definitely get someone to look for the phone. She didn't want to get into trouble. "Io, are you blind?" He Ruoshue twisted her waist and walked. She didn't want to be bumped by someone. Her ankle twisted and her bag fell to the ground. He Lanjin saw this and felt that the opportunity had come. She took Director Huang's phone and threw it down. She lowered her head and passed by quickly. Before Hiroshua turned around, she bent down and threw Director Huang's phone into Hiroshua's bag. She stood up straight and walked into the cafe. I'm sorry. That person apologized profusely. Hiroshua pointed at his nose and scolded him. He Longjin had just found a seat by the window when she saw the face of the person who bumped into Hiroshua. Wasn't it that doctor? Chapter 22. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 22. Children. Whose? Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. He Longjin ordered a cup of coffee and stared at the doctor who left after being scolded. She drank 2 cups of coffee elegantly with a big smile in her eyes. Miss, you look very similar to my ex-girlfriend. Do you mind if I sit down? At this moment, a man came forward to strike up a conversation. She put down the coffee cup, put down the money, and left without saying a word. After leaving the coffee shop, she went directly to the hospital. She casually registered a number and went straight to an office. She pushed the door open and entered. She threw the registration number on the table, pulled a chair to sit down, and took off her mask and sunglasses. Miss, did you go to the wrong place? The man turned around and pushed up his glasses. He looked at He Longjin, who had her arms around her chest, and looked at his faint smile. Her polite smile made his scalp go numb, and he wanted to invite her out. I'm sick. I'm here to see a doctor. Aren't you a doctor? He Longjin said. He took her registered number and looked at it. He handed it back to her and said, You're registered in the gynecology department. I'm not good at this. When you go out, turn right and look for the director of the gynecology department. There are doctors who don't know how to see patients. I'm asking you to see a doctor by name right now. Are you going to refuse the doctor? He Longjin stood up and said. She blinked her almond-shaped eyes for a few seconds. Suddenly, her smile became even more charming. She said, Forget it. I'm leaving now. She said that she was really leaving. After opening the door, she said, This doctor is so wicked. He actually pretended to see a woman in the gynecology department. Damn, Miss He. Don't be like this. The doctor quickly stepped forward, covered her mouth, and dragged her inside and slammed the door. She was so scared that she was covered in sweat. She resigned herself to fate and asked, Miss He, may I ask what you want? Just say it. Why did you follow me over and over again? He Longjin asked explicitly. The first time was when she wanted to cater to the news and wanted to create a car accident. He was the one who rushed to the scene and tied her into the doctor's bag. The second time was yesterday at the hotel. Xiao Hanya invited her to the suite to treat her illness. The third time was when he coincidentally knocked Hiroshua's bag off for her, allowing her to successfully throw her phone into Hiroshua's bag. If everything was a coincidence, wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Miss He, you're falsely accusing me. I'm an open and above-board person. Why would I follow you? Besides, I can't afford to offend you, the doctor said, giving in to her. Seeing this, He Longjin threw her bag onto the table and said to him, All right, then you can treat me. What's wrong with you? The doctor pushed his glasses up. He had an ominous premonition in his heart. His fair and handsome face was filled with helplessness. He didn't dare to chase her away, so he could only take a pen and prepare to write a medical record for her. I'm pregnant. You can perform an abortion on me. He Longjin looked at the gynecological department's registration. She became playful and deliberately wanted to tease him. However, she was basically certain that this person was Xiao Hanya's man. What exactly did Xiao Hanya want to do? Help her? She did not know him at all. What was his motive for doing this? Could it be that he wanted to swallow the He Corporation like Lu Zifan? Pfft. The doctor took a sip of water. When he heard her words, he spat out a mouthful of water. He choked quite badly. He rushed to her with an excited cough and said, "Child, child. Whose child is it? It seems to be mine." At this moment, a magnetic voice sounded. He Longin and the doctor turned their heads and looked outside the door. Xiao Hanya had arrived at some point in time. He leaned against the door and looked at her lazily. He walked up and propped his hands on the side of her chair. He looked down at her and said, "It seems that you have another purpose for renting my house." He Longin was just joking, but he didn't expect her to be interrupted by him. She wanted to get up, but he reached out to press her shoulders and fixed her body on the chair. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 23 was such an explosive incident. Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. The aura of a mature man surrounded her tightly. He Longin took a deep breath and said, "Mr. Chiao, please have some self-respect. Self-respect. If I remember correctly, you attacked me last night and deliberately tore off my bath towel to sit on me. Could it be that you took the opportunity to steal my child to get pregnant?" Xiao Yihan asked in a deep voice. He Longin was stunned. She looked at the doctor, who was so frightened that his glasses fell to the ground and he accidentally stepped on them and broke them. When the doctor heard such an explosive story, his gaze secretly swept over He Longin's stomach. He couldn't believe that Xiao Hanya had just arrived in Jiang City and had already given up his first night as a man. He even successfully got a woman pregnant. "Xiao Hanya, you can't joke about this." He Longin had always been calm. She didn't know why, but every time she met him, she would miscalculate. The man's fingertips pinched her chin, and the scorching hot breath sprayed on her face, itchy. Looking at the handsome face that was constantly magnified before him, his handsome features, his deep black eyes were like a deep pool that could seduce one's soul. The bridge of his nose was high, and his lips were thin. He looked like a perfect artifact of the human emperor, perfect to the point of perfection. "Ha! Do I look like I'm joking?" Xiao Hanya answered in a deep voice as he listened to her call him. She continued to take in deep breaths, and her plump chest heaved up and down. Her heart was beating non-stop. He Longin felt that she needed to look at her heart now. "Bnoel, is he one of your people?" He Longin avoided his gaze and quickly changed the topic. She pushed Xiao Hanya away forcefully and stood up to walk to the floor-to-ceiling window. She opened the window to let in some air. He Longin took a few deep breaths and turned around to look at them coldly. The doctor squatted down and picked up his glasses to wipe them. Although the lenses were broken and only 2 eye frames were left, he still put them on. It looked very comical. He habitually adjusted his glasses. He said, "The two of you, it's work time now. If you don't have anything to do, can you leave? Your presence here will affect my work." "Is he one of your people?" She still asked Xiao Hanya the same question. Xiao Hanya stood up straight and flicked the dust off his body. He looked at her with his dark eyes and said frankly, "Yes." "You asked him to follow you?" She continued to ask. He laughed softly and walked towards her. He Longin subconsciously took half a step back and leaned against the glass window. As she watched him approach, the air around her seemed to be sucked away by him, and she felt a little suffocated. "Be good, don't talk nonsense," Xiao Hanya said. He reached out and touched her head, coaxing her as if she was a little girl. This action caused the blood in her body to surge like a flood, causing her body to feel a little uncomfortable. "Don't touch me." She took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, and ran out. She walked in a rather sorry state, as if she was afraid that he would catch up to her. At the corner, she almost bumped into Han Beicheng. "Miss He, why are you here?" Han Beicheng almost bumped into her. He hurriedly dodged and avoided her. When she saw Han Beicheng, she narrowed her almond-shaped eyes, looked at him deeply, and said, "I was going to ask you the same thing." "This Han Beiqing watched her leave quickly. He was confused. Looking at the departing figure, he muttered to himself, I'm here to accompany Master to get the medicine. Master has a stomach ailment, so why did getting the medicine offend her? Han Beiqing walked into the office and saw that the doctor was wearing glasses without lenses. He said in surprise, Tai Dan, were you beaten by Nan Feng? My name is Sheng Guanji. The doctor's fair face turned black when he was called Tai Dan. The two words Ji and iron looked similar but they were completely different, okay. However, Han Beiqing was not only uneducated but also blind. Every time he called Han Beiqing iron egg, if not for Qiao Hanya's sake, Han Beiqing would have poisoned him sooner or later. P.S. The current update time is 2000 words at midnight, 1000 words at 7:30 a.m., and 1000 words at 11:30 p.m. Chapter 24 You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 24. We must find the person who stole the phone. Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. He Lanjin left the hospital and drove the car back to the city, stopping by the roadside. When she saw a message come in, it was from Tang Jilin, asking her how she moved out. She said that He Wenqing was sick and suddenly had urinary incontinence, telling her not to run around in the near future, so that the He family would not have any evidence in the hands of others. Got it. He Lanjin quickly replied with 3 words. Looking at the 3 words, urinary incontinence, she could not help but laugh. Back then, He Wenqing was chased out by the old man with an iron rod. He even threatened to break his legs if he drank again. Therefore, every time the old man was mentioned, He Wenqing was so scared that his legs went weak. This time, she did not expect that He Wenqing would be scared to the point of urinary incontinence because he was afraid that she would complain. Search for me. CEO Huang has said that we must find the person who stole the phone. At this moment, a group of bodyguards were aggressive and searched every person they saw like hooligans. Seeing this scene, He Lanjin deliberately looked at the news. Although CEO Huang was rich, this matter had blown up. His stock had been falling. It was said that many partners had withdrawn their investments, afraid of affecting their image. At this moment, at the 5-star couple's hotel, He Ruoxue deliberately touched up her makeup, twisted her waist, and rushed over. She put away her scarf, pulled down the collar of her sweater, and reached out to knock on the door. Ah! Just as her hand touched the door, she was forcefully dragged in. Lu Zifan threw her onto the bed and pressed on her body to flirt with her. Seeing Lu Zifan, she leaned into his arms charmingly, hugged him, and asked, "Do you miss him? What do you think?" Lu Zifan chuckled softly. Looking at her misty eyes, he lowered his head and kissed her little mouth, making her lose her rationality. He quickly asked, "Have you found the He family's confidential documents?" "Find. Ah. You move first, I'll tell you." He Ruoxue wanted to play hard to get with him, but she felt that Lu Zifan suddenly turned cold. He reached out and pushed her away, wanting to get out of bed. "Hubby." She was anxious. She reached out and hugged him from behind, saying softly, "I'll find it as soon as possible." "Brother Zifan, what exactly is the He family's secret? You want to know? Then quickly find it." Lu Zifan said in a low voice. When He Ruoxue heard this, she pouted unhappily and crawled into his arms, saying, "Then promise me that you'll marry me after the deed is done." "Baby, you don't believe me." Lu Zifan was a little frustrated when he heard that she wanted to promise him. He and she were just playing around. She was just an indirect chess piece for him to take down the He Corporation. When a woman wanted to take responsibility, it became a burden to him. He Ruoxue was a little unhappy when she heard that, but she didn't dare to lose her temper. She got up and pestered him like a water snake, saying, "You're the worst, but I like you." She reached out her hand and swam towards his body, but he stopped her and said, "Everything that happened between us was exposed. If the He family is alert and guarded against us, it'll be difficult for them to make a move in the future. Yes, I will get it as soon as possible. Ah, you're too bad, she said in a low voice. She was suppressed by him. He leaned against her and his hand swam around her body. Listening to her soft breathing, he lit up a cigarette and took a deep puff. Hiroshua climbed onto his body and reached out to snatch the cigarette from his mouth. She brought it to his mouth and took a puff. She said, Heelanjin regards me as her best friend and hasn't hidden anything from me. I've never heard her mention anything about the He family's past. Benove calm thinking of Heelanjin's foolish appearance, she was very confident. However, she didn't notice the disdain in Lu Zifan's eyes. When she came back to her senses, he pressed down and hugged her, forcefully possessing her and diverting her attention. Don't stop. Okay, I promise you. I'll go get it tonight. Go get it. Chapter 25. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 25 was going to be a snitch author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. Lu Zifan listened to her words and was even more angry that she did not live up to her expectations. If there was a better candidate, he would definitely not pick this stupid woman. Unfortunately, other than her, no one else in the He family was used by him. If she didn't hide anything from you, why didn't you know where the secret was? Lu Zifan sneered and said. His hair was wet from his passion and a few strands stuck to his forehead. He reached out and flung his hair back. His phone vibrated. When he saw that it was a call from Zhao Yui, his eyes darkened and he said to her, Be good, go take a shower. She refused to let him go. She wanted to see his screen, but he held her down. His hand swam towards her body and said to her, I'll play something more exciting with you later. Hiroshua listened and smiled charmingly. When she got up, she deliberately shook her body and deliberately seduced him. She winked at him before turning around and walking into the bathroom. Why, do you miss my little baby? Lu Zifan got up and walked to the French window to answer the phone. He was flirting with Zhao Yui through the phone. He was still throwing a tantrum because he was forced to be Hiroshua's boyfriend. Did you ask her out again? Hubby, if you dirty my baby, I won't want you anymore, Zhao Yui said. Hearing his willful words, Lu Zifan coaxed him. He turned around and walked back to the bed. He touched Hiroshua's bag and picked it up. He found a male phone in her bag. He looked at the bathroom in confusion. Through the glass door, he could vaguely see her figure. He picked up the phone, looked at it, and put it back into his bag. He got up and went into the bathroom, fighting with her. Not long after, her exaggerated screams came from the bathroom. She almost fainted because of Lu Zifan's abuse. When he left, he urged her to find the He family's secrets as soon as possible. He even stashed some money and a Louis Vuitton limited edition bag for her. Hubby, I love you so much. Hiroshua saw the gifts and money and rushed over to hug him and kiss him wildly. Lu Zifan smiled and touched her shoulder, saying, Little slut, when the deed is done, I guarantee that you won't even think about getting out of bed for the next 3 days. The two of them lingered for a while, afraid of being caught by the media. One after the other, they left the hotel. Sister, I miss you so much. When will you come back? I'm so lonely at home by myself. I miss you. Hiroshua's legs couldn't close. She stood there, took out her phone, and sent a message to Heelanjin. This scene fell into Heelanjin's eyes. She leaned against the car window and stuck her head out to bask in the sun. However, she saw a group of people looking for people on the street. She could also see how stupid their master was. Since he could use IP tracking, why would he bother to search her body? Ah! Hiroshua was on the phone. She didn't look at the road and bumped into people coming from the opposite direction. Her legs were weak from Lu Zifan's attack. She couldn't stand properly after being hit by someone. She fell to the ground and her LV bag fell to the ground. Her things were scattered all over the ground. Get lost. The group of people scolded her and even kicked her LV bag. Seeing the bag that Lu Zifan had given her being kicked and dirted by that person, her beautiful eyes flashed with a vicious coldness. She shook her hands and tried to pick it up, but she was stepped on. She groaned in pain, but those people walked away. Her hands were swollen from being stepped on, and she vaguely heard people saying that they were President Huang's people looking for his phone. Could it be that his phone was stolen and the video was leaked, which caused his reputation to be ruined? He Ruoxue heard it and her eyes lit up. She immediately had an idea. Recently, the incident between her and Lu Zifan had been greatly publicized on the internet. Although it was eventually suppressed, the impact was too great. She always wore sunglasses to cover half of her face when she came out, afraid that she would be recognized. After putting on the sunglasses, she put on some makeup and drove the car to a certain hotel. She looked around and saw that the place was tightly surrounded. Stop. She approached and was blocked by the bodyguards. Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 26 tickled his heart. Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. Hiroshua looked at him coldly, puffed out her chest, and said arrogantly, "Tell Director Huang that I know who stole his phone. Bring it in." When the bodyguard heard that, he searched her body and found that she did not have a weapon that could hurt someone, so he brought it in, wanting to make a contribution. Hiroshua twisted her watery waist and sprayed some perfume on her body. She looked at the bodyguard contemptuously, afraid that he would smell like her. She came to the suite and saw Director Huang sitting on the sofa in his sleeping robe, snoring. "Director Huang." She walked forward gracefully and called out softly. Director Huang heard the voice and opened his eyes irritably. When he saw Hiroxue's figure, his eyes lit up and spat on the ground. He stood up and narrowed his eyes at her. "Miss, who are you?" From a distance, he could also hear the stench in his mouth and his mouth full of golden teeth. The coldness in Hiroxue's eyes became even colder. "Director Huang, I know who stole your phone. I don't know if I can report it to you. Is there a reward?" Hiroxue said tenderly. She walked to the side and sat down. She raised her legs and crossed them, revealing her smooth skin. President Huang looked at her charming appearance and could not help but swallow his saliva. "Who stole it?" President Huang thought of losing his phone and was furious. That person was extremely bold and dared to ruin his reputation. Now that the company's stock was falling, the partner withdrew his capital, and he was still under house arrest by the police. If that person was caught, he would definitely kill him. "Do you know the He family?" Hiroxue said in a low voice. Her beautiful body leaned forward. She whispered to him, "He family's daughter, He Lanjin, is proficient in computers and is a half-baked hacker. I saw with my own eyes that she took your phone, hacked the system, and exposed the video." Chief Huang flew into a rage when he heard that. He Lanjin's name was like a humiliation seared into his heart that day. She failed. The little bird under her feet was trampled by her. Her bodyguards were also killed and injured by her. The police report was rejected. How could he swallow this? "Are you sure it's her?" Chief Huang was a little doubtful. Hiroxue stood up and walked towards him. Her smooth hand rested on his shoulder and pressed him down on the sofa. She looked down at him from above and said charmingly, "She is my good friend, but I don't want to see innocents harmed. I want to pull her up. President Huang, you have to promise me. Just take back the phone and don't make things difficult for her," Hiroxue said. Her voice was choked with sobs as President Huang held her by the waist. He touched her body and said, "His mother's woman, how dare she touch me? If I had known earlier, I would have crippled her that day." President Huang, you don't hurt her, please." Hiroxue was anxious. Seeing the beauty in his arms anxious, he didn't let her leave so easily. Seeing the beauty, he forgot everything and said to her, baby, okay? I won't hurt her. You're really a great beauty. Director Huang, what are you doing? Hiroshua struggled and quickly stood up from his arms. Deliberately keeping a distance, seducing a pervert like Director Huang made her heart itch even more. He even pinched her buttocks before he got up and called the bodyguard over, saying, "Men, go to the He family to find that little slut." Director Huang. The bodyguards all rushed in. When they smelled the turbid atmosphere in the suite, they did not dare to raise their heads. They saw Director Huang rubbing his hands under his body, saying, "Go and give He Wenqing's precious daughter to me." Before he could finish his words, he felt a gust of wind blowing from outside the window. Pa! An iron ball smashed into his face. Instantly, his face was bruised and swollen. Ah! Director Huang screamed. His nose was bleeding all over his face. When he came back to his senses, he did not even see a shadow. The bodyguards were also helpless. However, they saw a small ball of paper by his feet. Director Huang reached out to pick it up and opened the paper package. When he saw that line of words, his expression changed. He stared at Hiroshua. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 27. How dare you hit me? Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. What are you waiting for? Chase him. Director Huang was furious. Did this person treat him like a sick cat, slap him in the face in front of everyone he still had face? Yes. All the bodyguards rushed out. Only Hiroshua and Director Huang were left in the suite. He stared at the paper wrapped around the small iron ball and saw a line of words that read, "The old Huang next door, hurry up and call your number." Director Huang looked at the bold Huang and was obviously scolding him. The name of the dog was usually called Old Huang. The key was that the last paragraph made him pick up the landline and dialed his number. His phone had been turned off previously, but now it actually rang. The ring in the suite rang for a long time. Director Huang's expression became even uglier. He stared at Hiroshua as if he wanted to tear her apart. She sat there arrogantly, like a queen who wanted to get some benefits. "Director Huang, what are you doing?" Seeing him rush up, he grabbed her bag, opened it, and threw it on the ground. The birth control tee and many other gadgets fell to the ground. A phone appeared in front of him. Director Huang picked up the phone, turned around, and slapped him. Hiroshua was knocked to the ground by him, and her sunglasses were knocked off. "Hiroshua, are you crazy? I came to remind you out of kindness. How dare you hit me?" Hiroshua was used to being spoiled by Lu Zifan. She felt wronged by the violence. A proud woman like her did not like a nouveau riche like Hiroshua. She was ugly and vulgar. "Remind me. I would only believe you if I was stupid. You used my phone to report others. Do you really think I'm stupid?" Hiroshua said rudely. Hiroshua was stunned. She was shocked when she saw the phone that Hiroshua was holding. Why was the phone in her bag? Someone set me up. Hiroshua got up, gritted her teeth, and was about to leave when CEO Huang grabbed her arm and threw her onto the bed. CEO Huang tore off his robe and kicked her fiercely. The kick made Hiroshua cry bitterly. She turned around and wanted to escape, but he rushed up and slapped her onto the bed. "Stinky bitch, how dare you play me?" Seeing her fall onto the bed, he stepped on her and pressed her neck. He opened his mouth full of golden teeth and bit her body. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts." Hiroshua cried out loud. Only then did she remember that this person had a bad reputation and was a sadist. Everything that had gone out of her plan shattered her beautiful dream. Who was the one who harmed her? The image of that person bumping into her in the morning kept replaying in her mind, and anger surged into her heart. She was jealous of He Longjin. Why did Lu Zifan want to marry her? Because she was the He family's daughter, and she was nothing but an affair. She was unwilling to accept it. On one hand, she wanted the He family's secrets, and on the other hand, she wanted to destroy He Longjin. As long as He Longjin was ruined, Lu Zifan would break off the engagement with her, and her chances would be even greater. In the entire Jiang city, who would dare to play me like this? You have guts. CEO Huang was a pervert. He would do whatever he wanted without any foreplay. His perversion scared He Ruoxue. She and Lu Zifan were in love, but she had never been treated like this before. She never dreamed that one day, she would be raped by a disgusting man. Let go of me, let go of me. He Ruoxue cried miserably. She was paralyzed on the ground like a puppet. Her eyelids moved. Seeing that he was satisfied with his withdrawal, she spat at her and said, "Bah, she's actually an unclean woman." Bang! After he finished speaking, he kicked her off the bed. She cried and put on her clothes in a sorry state before running out. Rushing out of the hotel, she hugged her knees and cried. She said in a low voice, "I can't cry. I can't let Lu Zifan know. If he knew that I was raped by someone, he definitely wouldn't want me. He Longjin, it's all your fault. If I didn't report you, how could I have been raped by him?" The vicious light in He Ruoxue's eyes became even more intense. She stood up and touched up her makeup. Afraid that others would know, she lowered her head and quietly left. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 28. Don't mention her to me. Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. He Longjin sat in the car and was about to drive away when she saw a group of police officers rush into the hotel and forcefully arrest Director Huang. He cursed and wanted to resist, but the police officers came with batons and beat him to the ground. He was dragged into the car. Pfft. When He Longjin saw Director Huang fall, Ku Zi was not properly carried and actually slipped down his leg. She felt inexplicably amused and looked at He Ruoxue and Director Huang not far away. If she had not caught He Ruoxue having an affair with Lu Zifan, how would she know He Ruoxue's ugly face? She had thrown her phone to He Ruoxue today because she did not want to cause trouble. She did not expect He Ruoxue to walk right into the trap. She did not understand the situation, so she made something out of nothing and wanted to report herself anonymously. Thinking of this, He Longjin drove the car back to the scenery garden. "I'm back." He Longjin was in a good mood. When she came in, she looked at the spacious living room. On the beige sofa at the entrance, a tall figure sat there lazily. He leaned against the sofa and closed his eyes to rest. His beautiful chin was raised. She took off her shoes and tiptoed forward. Suddenly, she mischievously rushed towards him and shouted in an attempt to scare him. "Ah!" She moved closer to his side and wanted to shout in his ear. Although Qiao Hanye closed his eyes to rest, it was as if he had eyes on his body. He reached out and hugged her slender waist, causing her to fall onto his lap. You. He Longjin fell onto his lap and watched as he slowly opened his eyes. She did not push him away. Her gaze fell on him and said thoughtfully, "I just saw the news and found out that there's a pervert in Jiang City who likes to lay his hands on girls. Mr. Qiao, do you have such a hobby?" Her voice was clear and sweet, but her thoughts were rational. She did not struggle or push him away. She was calm and collected, showing off her imposing manner. "Oh. I thought Miss he wanted to steal my son again." Qiao Hanye raised his handsome eyebrows and asked. Hearing him say, "steal my son," she thought of the hospital. She made a joke and was slandered by him that she sat on his body last night and stole his sperm. For some reason, her face turned red. She quickly jumped up and said, "Don't. Let's put this matter behind us and call it even. Since you've moved in, Miss He, please pay the rent," Qiao Hanye said in a low voice. Her figure stiffened. Thinking of how she lived in the wrong place, she wanted to make up for her mistake and let him chase after her for the rent. Jing Garden was located in the best area of Jiang City. Although she had never visited this place before, just this residence alone was several hundred square meters, not to mention the courtyard. The price was so expensive that it made one's heart tremble. Although she was the daughter of the He family, she was afraid that it would be difficult for her to pay. The key was. He picked up her phone and still wanted her to pay. You took advantage of everything. You still want the rent. He Longjin glanced at him with contempt, ran upstairs in large strides, and entered the room to close the door. Her back was against the door, and she shook her head hard, thinking that she had gone crazy. Why didn't she just punch his face? She climbed onto the bed and lay down, crossing her long legs to play the game. The image of her hacking into the system last night and peeping at him taking a shower surfaced in her mind. For a moment, she was distracted and killed until nothing was left. Qin Nan couldn't stand it anymore, so he called her. 1,000-year-old gaming expert, you actually lost. What are you doing? Qin Nan asked. Looking at the horrible score, she quickly logged off and changed her position. What else can I do? I'm just distracted. Don't tell me you're thinking of a man. Like someone as handsome as me. Qin Nan asked narcissistically. She kept saying, I'm so nervous. Please don't fall in love with me. I'm just a legend. You. I remember Hiroshua has a good impression of you. She deliberately mentioned it. Qin Nan listened and thought of Hiroshua's naked eyes. He was so scared that he almost fainted. He said, F***ck, don't mention her to me. After the phone call, He Longjin got up and opened the door to see if Xiao Hanya had left. She was ready to search the entire house and run away as soon as she found her phone. Oh. When she opened the door, she bumped into a wall of meat. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 29 went into his wardrobe. Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. She bumped into a wall of flesh, and the scent of a mature man filled the air. There was a faint smell of tobacco, but it smelled especially good. Take this. This medicine is good for your external injuries, Xiao Hanya said in a low voice. An exquisite bottle of medicine was handed to her, and he didn't stay long before leaving. He Longjin watched him leave and looked at the medicine bottle. The exquisite bottle was carved with patterns. She withdrew her hand and returned to her room. She ran to the floor-to-ceiling window. When she saw him drive away, she couldn't help but feel happy. She threw the medicine bottle on the bed and took the opportunity to sneak into his study. However, she found that it required several layers of passwords and palm prints. Even if she could crack the system, it was still a little difficult for her to crack such a difficult password. She could only give up on the study and walk to his bedroom. She pushed the door open, and the door actually opened. She quickly flashed in and searched through the cabinets, but she couldn't find the phone. Did he put the phone somewhere else? He Longjin asked softly. Although it was dark that night, she recognized the phone in his hand at a glance. It was her phone. Xiao Hanya's identity was unknown. If he found the video on the phone and used it, the consequences would be unimaginable. While she was deep in thought, she heard heavy footsteps approaching. She quickly stood up and looked around the bedroom. It was too simple. Besides the bed, there was only the wardrobe to hide people in. She opened the wardrobe and went in. As soon as she went in, she regretted it. There was a man's shirt hanging in the wardrobe, but the position where she stood was neatly arranged. Man human. Body. Clothes. She turned her head away awkwardly. She had graduated from the military academy, so it was not difficult for her to hide. However, she was still so nervous that her palms were sweating. She held her breath and heard the door open. Xiao Hanya's voice could be heard. We'll do as you say, Xiao Hanya said. Han Beicheng followed behind and took Xiao Hanye's coat. He hung it carefully at the side and said, "Yes, I'll make the arrangements right away, master. Do we need to call the chef over?" Han Beicheng turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. Xiao Hanye had just moved into Jing Garden. Other than the two of them, there were only guards in the dark and no chef. "There's no need," Xiao Hanye said. His deep black eyes narrowed slightly. He searched the bedroom and reached out to open the drawer. His gaze fixed on the wardrobe. "Master." Han Beicheng saw the situation. He had followed Xiao Hanye for many years. He could read almost every little action of Xiao Hanye. Xiao Hanye glanced at the wardrobe. There was clearly something wrong. The scenery garden was heavily guarded, and even flies could not fly in, except for Helan Jin. Han Beicheng wanted to go forward, but was stopped by Xiao Hanye, who reached out and said to him, "You go out first." "Yes." Han Beicheng responded and retreated out. When he closed the door, he took a deep look at the wardrobe. Xiao Hanye lifted his hand and unbuttoned his shirt. He walked to the wardrobe and reached out to hold the handle and turn it. Helan Jin held her breath, and was so scared that she reached out to grab his hand that was placed at the side. Clothes.fitting, boxers. When she saw that the wardrobe was opened a little, she was about to rush out, but she saw that his wardrobe was suddenly closed. "In 1 minute, gather everyone for a video conference." Xiao Hanye picked up his phone and made a call. After taking a shower, he went straight to the study room. Hearing his footsteps, Helan Jin came out from the wardrobe and looked at the wrinkled flat horn on her hand. She quickly shook it off and tried her best to put it back in place. After seeing that everything was neatly arranged, she left carefully. "Miss He." Just as she walked to the corridor, Han Beicheng stopped her. She stood there and pretended to stretch. She walked over with her hands behind her back and asked, "What's the matter?" Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 30, Can You Bring Me Along? Author. Purple Peony Machine Translation. Helan Jin looked as if nothing had happened on the surface, but in her heart, she was a little nervous. "The master said that he would personally cook later, so you don't have to go out to eat tonight." Although Han Beicheng was depressed, the master actually cooked for a woman and even sent him to wait here to inform her, as if he was afraid that she wouldn't know. Hearing that Xiao Hanye was cooking, she was a little surprised. A person like him could also cook, but when she remembered that they did not suspect anything, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "All right," she said. She walked very quickly. Han Beicheng looked at her figure and scratched his head in confusion. What is master up to? Such a dangerous woman, and she still wants to let her live in Jing Garden. What if one day master is going to be? When he said this, he immediately shut his mouth. "Come in." Xiao Hanye's voice sounded. Han Beicheng hurriedly pushed the door open and entered. He saw that Xiao Hanye was in a video conference, and he was waiting at the side. When the video conference ended, Xiao Hanye picked up the golden pen and signed it, then threw the document to him. "Master, are you going to buy the shares of the Lu Corporation at a high price?" Han Beicheng took a look and was a little surprised. The Lu Corporation was not in their plan, but now Xiao Hanye was preparing to attack. Although Lu Zifan is the heir, the shares he has are not high. The shares of all the members of the Lu family add up to only 31%. Find a way to contact these people and have them sell their votes, Xiao Hanye said in a deep voice. Han Beicheng closed the documents and scratched his head, saying, "Master, do you have a crush on Miss He?" Xiao Hanye was silent. He raised his eyes and looked at him coldly. One look made Han Beicheng shiver all over. He hurriedly stepped back and said, "Yes, I'll do it right away." Bang! Han Beicheng rushed out of the door. When he came downstairs, he saw Helan Jin sitting on the sofa and watching the iPad play games. He took a closer look and said in surprise, "Miss He, can you take me with you?" He Lan Jin was chewing on melon seeds. She lifted her hair and looked up at him, saying, "Pay up and become his disciple." Han Beicheng listened to her as she paid up. He rubbed oil on the bottom of his feet, and in a second, he was done. Stingy. She watched Han Beicheng disappear the moment he heard the word "pay up." She stood up and stretched. When she saw Qiao Hanya change into a gray family uniform and go downstairs, she turned her eyes slyly and said, "Hello, Mr. Qiao." "Okay." Qiao Hanya glanced at her and saw the slyness in her eyes. He asked, "What do you want to eat?" Braised pork ribs, spicy prawns, boiled fish. She ordered a few dishes unceremoniously. Qiao Hanya rolled up his sleeves and said in surprise, "Spicy food?" "Yes." She nodded repeatedly and stood there obediently. She was a completely different person from the arrogant one at the nightclub that night. If he had not seen it with his own eyes and saw her beating up President Huang today, he would have really been deceived by her. "Please, please." She walked to the kitchen door and opened it for him, sending him in. Qiao Hanya looked at her attentive manner. When he opened the refrigerator, he found that she was nowhere to be seen. His dark eyes looked up the stairs with unfathomable depth. Looking at her cheerful figure, he was inexplicably infected by her. "Master, Director Huang has been arrested by the police and is awaiting investigation and interrogation. What are we going to do next?" Han Beicheng appeared. Looking at Qiao Hanya's busy figure, he respectfully stepped forward to help. Qiao Hanya stopped him. He took a tissue to wipe his hands and said, "Let Nan Feng pay a visit to the people on the list tonight." He emphasized, "pay a visit," and Nan Feng was Qiao Hanya's loyalist. It was not a good thing for him to make a move. "Yes," Han Beicheng said in a low voice. When he heard Qiao Hanya mention the list, his eyes showed a hint of ruthlessness. He said, "These people deserve to die." Qiao Hanya lowered his head. Under the dim light, his emotions were unclear, but the anger he was emitting seemed to want to destroy the world. Now in Jiangcheng, the Lu family is dominant. "If you want to pin him down, you must break his arm," Qiao Hanya said in a deep voice. Han Beicheng heard it and nodded knowingly, saying, "I know what to do." Han Beicheng left, and the kitchen returned to silence. No one knew that their words just now had decided the life and death of many people.